Welcome back, in part 4 of Sega. Anyways, let's continue about this topic.
In August 2003, Sammy bought 22.4% of Sega shares from CSK, making Sammy Sega's largest shareholder.
In the same year, Hajime Satomi said Sega's activity would focus on its profitable arcade business as opposed to loss-incurring home software development.
Successful console games during this period include entries in the Sonic the Hedgehog, Puyo Puyo, Virtua Fighter, Super Monkey Ball, Phantasy Star Online and Sakura Wars franchises.
In 2004, Sega Sammy Holdings, an entertainment conglomerate, was created. Sega and Sammy became subsidiaries of the new holding company. Both companies operated independently while the executive departments merged.
According to the first Sega Sammy annual report, the merger went ahead as both companies were facing difficulties.
Satomi said Sega had been operating at a loss for nearly 10 years, while Sammy feared stagnation and over-reliance of its highly profitable Pachi slot and pachinko machine business and wanted to diversify.
Sammy acquired the remaining percentages of Sega, completing a takeover.
The stock swap deal valued Sega between $1.45 billion and $1.8 billion.
Sega Sammy Holdings was structured into 4 parts: consumer business, video games, amusement machine business, arcade games. Amusement center business, Sega theme parks and arcades, and Pachisla and Pachinko business, Sammy's Pachinko and Pachi slot business. According to an industry survey, as of 2005, sales of arcade machines were up for the previous 4 years in Japan, while down for 9 straight years overseas.
In response to the decline of the global arcade industry in the late 1990s, Sega created several novel concepts tailored to the Japanese market.
Derby Owners Club was an arcade machine with memory cards for data storage.
Testing of Derby Owners Club in a Chicago arcade showed that it had become the most popular machine at the location, with a 92% replay rate.
The cabinet was too expensive and the game did not entice casual users, which are essential to the Western arcade market.
While the Japanese market retained core players, Western arcades had become more focused on casual players, and Sega Amusements Europe, the entity created to officially distribute and manufacture Sega's machines on the continent after the consolidation of its regional divisions, subsequently decided to develop more games locally that were better suited to Western tastes.
In 2005, the GameWorks chain of arcades came under the sole ownership of Sega, which previously was shared with Vivendi Universal and remained under its ownership until 2011.
In 2009, Sega Republic, an indoor theme park, opened in Dubai.
Sega gradually reduced its arcades from 450 in 2005 to around 200 in 2015.
Arcade machine sales incurred higher profits than the company's console, mobile and PC games on a year-to-year basis until the fiscal year of 2014.
In order to drive growth in Western markets, Sega announced new leadership for Sega of America and Sega Europe in 2005.
Simon Jeffrey became president and COO of Sega of America, and Mike Page president and COO for Sega Europe.
In 2009, Hayes became president of the combined outfit of both Sega of America and Sega Europe, due to Jeffrey leaving.
Sega sold Visual Concepts to Take-Two Interactive and purchased UK-based developer Creative Assembly, known for its Total War series.
In the same year, Sega Racing Studio was also formed by former Codemasters employees.
In 2006, Sega Europe purchased Sports Interactive, known for its Football Manager series.
Sega found success in the Japanese market with a Yakuza, Fantasy Star and Action Mikyu, Reject Diva series.
Sega began providing the 3D imaging for Action Mikyu holographic concerts in 2010.
Sega also distributes games from smaller Japanese game developers and sells localizations of Western games in Japan.
In 2013, Index Corporation was purchased by Sega Sammy after going bankrupt.
The year before, Sega signed a deal to distribute Atlas titles in Japan.
After the buyout, Sega implemented a corporate spin-off with Index.
The latter's game assets were rebranded as Atlas, a wholly owned subsidiary of Sega.
Atlas is known for the Persona and Megami Tensei series.
The Sonic the Hedgehog games had grossed over $5 billion in sales by 2014. In the mobile market, Sega released its first app on the iTunes Store with a version of Super Monkey Ball for iOS in 2008.
Due in part to the decline of packaged game sales worldwide in the 2010s, Sega began layoffs and closed 5 offices, based in Europe and Australia, on July 1, 2012.
This was to focus on the digital game market, such as personal computers and mobile devices.
In 2012, Sega also began acquiring studios for mobile development, studios such as Arclight, Three Rings Design, and Emerge Studios, becoming fully owned subsidiaries.
19 older mobile games were pulled due to quality concerns in May 2015. To streamline operations, Sega established operational firms for each of its businesses in the 2010s.
In 2012, Sega established Sega Networks as a subsidiary company for its mobile games.
The same year, Sega Entertainment was established for Sega's amusement facility business.
In January 2015, Sega of America announced its relocation from San Francisco to Atlas USA's headquarters in Irvine, California, which was completed later that year.
From 2005 to 2015, Sega's operating income generally saw improvements compared to Sega's past financial problems, but was not profitable every year, reporting overall losses in 2008, 2009 and 2012. In April 2015, Sega Corporation was reorganized into Sega Group, one of the 3 groups of Sega Sammy Holdings.
Sega Holdings Company Limited was established, with 4 business sectors under its control.
Haruki Satomi, son of Hajime Satomi, took office as president and CEO of the company in April 2015.
As a result, Sega Corporation rebranded itself to Sega Games Company Limited and continued to manage home video games. while Sega Interactive Company Limited was founded to take control of the arcade division.
Sega Networks merged with Sega Games in 2015.
Whoa!
At the Tokyo Game Show in September 2016, Sega announced that it had acquired the intellectual property and development rights to all games developed and published by Technosoft.
Effective from January 2017, 85.1% of the shares in Sega's theme park business became owned by China Animation's Character Company, renaming the former Sega Live Creation to CA Sega Joypolis. Sega Sammy Holdings announced in April 2017 that it would relocate its head office functions and domestic subsidiaries located in the Tokyo metropolitan area to Shinagawa by January 2018.
This was to consolidate scattered head office functions including Sega Sammy Holdings, Sammy Corporation, Sega Holdings, Sega Games, Atlas, Sammy Networks, and Darksleuth.
Sega's previous headquarters in Odo was sold in 2019. In June 2017, Chris Bergstresser replaced Jurgen Post as president and COO of Sega Europe.
In June 2018, Gary Dale, formerly of Rockstar Games and Take-Two Interactive, replaced Chris Bergstresser as president and COO of Sega Europe.
A few months later, Ian Curran, a former executive at THQ and Acclaim Entertainment, replaced John Cheng as president and COO of Sega of America in August 2018.
In October 2018, Sega reported favorable Western sales results from games such as Yakuza 6 and Persona 5, due to the localization work of Atlas USA.
Despite a 35% increase in the sale of console games and success in its PC game business, profits fell 70% for the 2018 fiscal year in comparison to the previous year. Mainly due to the digital games market, which includes mobile games as well as Phantasy Star Online 2.
In response, Sega announced that for its digital games it would focus on releases for its existing intellectual property and also focus on growth areas such as packaged games in the overseas market.
Sega blamed the loss on market miscalculations and having too many games under development.
Projects in development at Sega included a new game in the Yakuza series, the Sonic the Hedgehog film, and the Sega Genesis Mini, which was released in September 2019.
In May 2019, Sega acquired 2 Point Studios, known for 2 Point Hospital. On April 1, 2020, Sega Interactive merged with Sega Games.
The company was again renamed to Sega Corporation, while Sega Holdings Company Limited was renamed Sega Group Corporation.
According to a company statement, the move was made to allow greater research and development flexibility.
Also in April 2020, Sega sold Demeyers Studios to Demeyers co-founder Albert Reed.
Demeyers said it would continue to support the mobile games it developed under Sega. As part of its 60th anniversary, Sega announced the Game Gear Micro console for release on October 6, 2020 in Japan.
Other anniversary projects include the Astro City Mini and several other merchandise.
Sega also announced its FOD gaming platform, which uses the unused processing power of arcade machines in Japanese arcades overnight to help power cloud gaming applications. Sega made a number of restructuring moves in the early 2020s.
During the latter half of 2020, many of the financial gains Sega made in the earlier part of the year dissolved due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on its Sega Entertainment division, which ran its arcades.
That November, Sega Sammy sold 85.1% of its shares in the division to Genda Incorporated, though the Sega branding and coin-operated machines continued to be used in arcades.
Arcade game development was unaffected by the sale.
In January 2022, Sega sold the remaining portion of this division to Genda.
Sega Amusement International was sold via a management buyout to Occasion Entertainment. However, the Sega brand will still be used for all games and the company name remains through a royalty agreement.
Sega Group Corporation was formally dissolved by its parent company in 2021. Contrasting its losses brought forth by amusement operations in 2020, sales and critical reception of Sega's home console games improved. Metacritic named Sega the best publisher of the year in 2020.
Of its 28 releases that year, 95% had good Metacritic scores above 75/100, including 2 with great scores above 90/100 for Persona 5 Royal and Yakuza 0, with an average Metacritic score of 81.6 for all 2020 Sega releases.
Phantasy Star Online 2 was reported in 2021 to have made over US $900 million since its release in 2012.
In 2022, Sega announced its Super Game Project, a series of high-budget games expected to generate lifetime sales of US $672 million. And allocated about US $200 million into its budget across 3 years.
The project was cancelled in May 2026 after Sega retreated from free-to-play games.
In 2023, Sega acquired the Finnish video game developer Rovio Entertainment, known for the Angry Birds series, for US $776 million.
On April 24, 2023, 144 Sega of America employees announced plans to file a new union election under the new labor union. Allied Employees Guild Improving Sega, AEGIS, which is allied with the Communication Workers of America via CWA Local 9510.
AEGIS represents workers from departments including marketing, quality assurance, development and localization, making it the first of its kind in the game industry in the United States.
On July 10, 2023, it was announced that workers had voted 91 to 26 to form the union.
AEGIS is undergoing certification with a National Labor Relations Board before going into bargaining.
In May 2023, Sega announced that 121 employees at Relic Entertainment have been made redundant to focus on core franchises.
That same year, Sega cancelled its upcoming shooter Hyenas and began restructuring its British and European operations.
At the Game Awards 2023, Sega announced an initiative to revive many of its dormant franchises, beginning with New Crazy Taxi, Golden Axe, Jet Set Radio, Shinobi and Streets of Rage games.
The Washington Post characterized the announcement as a return to Sega's 1990s bohemian and countercultural spirit.
The co-CEO, Shuji Utsumi, said Sega wanted to show edginess and a rebellious mindset, and that the industry was now large enough to sustain its less conventional games.
In November 2023, AEGIS filed an unfair labor practice after Sega proposed a plan to phase out temporary employees by February 2024, which would affect around 80 employees.
In January 2024, Jurgen Post rejoined Sega Europe to become COO of its Western studios and also serve as managing director.
That month, Shuji Utsumi became the president, COO and CEO of Sega of America and Europe.
Utsumi had previously helped found Sony Computer Entertainment, where he helped launch the original PlayStation, before moving to Sega and assisting with a North American Dreamcast launch.
After a period with Disney Interactive, he co-founded Q Entertainment before returning to Sega in 2020.
On January 9, Sega Sammy Holdings announced that Sega's amusement machine business would be merged and transferred to Sega Toys, which will be renamed Sega Fave Corporation.
The changes will take effect by April.
On February 29, Sega appointed Justin Scarpone as an executive vice president of the group to expand Sega's transmedia strategy. In January 2024, Sega of America announced that it would lay off 61 workers at its Irvine, California location.
AEGIS have been negotiating with Sega of America since November to reduce the total redundancies.
On March 27, 2024, AEGIS announced that its workers had ratified a contract with Sega of America, focusing on key issues.
The following day, Sega laid off 240 workers from its British and European operations, including Sega Europe, Creative Assembly, and ArcLight, and sold Relic Entertainment to an external investor.
On November 8, Sega sold Amplitude Studios to its staff via a management buyout.
Sonic X Shadow Generations, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth and Persona 3 Reload reached 1 million sales within a week, a record for each of the respective franchises.
The Sonic the Hedgehog movie franchise made over $1 billion. We will continue more about Sega in the final part, Part 5.
Also, after this episode is finished, there will be a special 1-hour Wikipedia audio presentation about Sega uploaded by Camshaft64.
The audio will last exactly 69 minutes.
During the presentation, gameplay footage of Sonic the Hedgehog 1991, uploaded by Longplay Archive, will be shown to help prevent screen damage, such as after images or ghost imaging, that could occur if a static image remained on screen throughout the lengthy audio.
We'll begin the audio presentation after the final part has concluded. Until then, stay tuned for the final part.